Okay, so we are going to, it's as though we were never gone. Okay, we are going to work on trig lesson number 3. The very first thing you are given is the Pythagorean theorem used to find the other side. So we know c squared equals a squared plus b squared. This always works in a right triangle. As long as you have a right triangle, you're good to go. Remember that c is always the what class?
Hypotenuse.
Well done. Okay, C is the hypotenuse. So if we come down here to class example number 1, we're going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Write the formula down or the equation. Simply fill in what you need. A and B don't matter, so just plug them in how you want. Make sure you square them. And it's equal to x squared in this case, because x is your hypotenuse. So you do some math. Okay, so I'm just going to do 2.5 squared is 6.25, and 3.7 squared is 13.69. Continue going down the page, don't go across. I hate that. Okay, so we get 19.94 equals x squared, and then in order to get rid of the squared and just find x, whoops, we have to do the square root. All right. So we go square root, and x is going to equal 4 point. Now we're supposed to go to the nearest tenth, so make sure you look up quick and see. The nearest tenth is 4.5. If you don't watch that, you will get that tenth stuff wrong. Numerical response, I don't care if you're 1 decimal place off. If you don't do what it says, you get the whole thing wrong. So you could have worked all that time and just given it to 2 places or the wrong rounding, and you still get the whole thing wrong. So you must be accurate. Okay, now on this one over here, what side class are we missing? Are we missing an A, a B, or a C? Either an A or a B, doesn't matter which one. So what we're going to go is we're going to go 120. We're going to call this A here. This can be your A. 120 squared plus, I don't know, B squared equals our C, which is our hypotenuse. When we type that all in our calculator, we do all the math. You don't, yeah. And I'll give you a...
Crap.
Okay, so B squared equals 484. You will enjoy Billy's laughter even while she's not here. And when we do that, we get B is 22. By the way, this should make sense. You should not have, when B is 22, you know that the hypotenuse should be the longest side. If you were to ever get a leg that was longest, you would know you were wrong. Okay? All right. Good to go? We're going to turn the page. All right. So what happens here, when we're done using the Pythagorean theorem, anytime we are given a triangle and we want to know some information from it, as long as you are given 2 pieces, we can always find the other part. So in other words, you could right now find angle C if you wanted to.
38.
38. Trinity, how did you discover 38? 9 is minus 52, exactly. 90 minus 52, and get 38. We can find x. We cannot use the Pythagorean theorem because the Pythagorean theorem requires us to have 2 sides. But we can use our trig function. This is what they're good for. So all you have to say is, what do I have? What do I want? So what should I use? So if you look at this and you say, I can probably use a trig function. I have this angle, so that makes this the this is the hypotenuse, and this is the opposite side. So what we have to discover here is, which trig function uses the opposite and the hypotenuse? Sine. So we're going to use the sine ratio, because the sine ratio will help us to find that. We're going to say the sine of 52 is opposite, which is x, over 14.2. At this moment, sine of 52 is just a number on your calculator. You can literally type in, I will right now, sine of 52. When I'm in degrees, I have 0.7880. So we're going to take that and we're going to cross multiply right down here like this. That goes on one side of the equal sign. This goes on the other. So I'm going to put sine of 52 here. And when I do that, I type in sine 52 and then I times that by 14.2. I get 11.189. Now I'm looking back to see how I'm supposed to record my answer. It actually doesn't say it, does it? Oh, to 1 decimal place right there. Sorry, 1 decimal place right there. So 11.2 is what we're going to do. So make sure you look back to see how much you have to do to what decimal place. Okay? All right. Now we're going to do it again. This time they don't have a picture. You're going to create your own. So this says the ladder is 4.5 meters long. It reaches up to the top of the wall. The angle between the ladder and the ground is 65 degrees. So here we go. Let's draw a little picture. Here's my little house. Okay, here's my ladder. It's reaching all the way to the top. My ladder is 4.5 meters. And the angle between the ladder and the ground right here is 65. What do they want to know? So what do you have? What do you want? What do you know? Okay, it says make a rough sketch. It's pretty rough. Determine the distance between the bottom of the ladder, the distance between the bottom of the ladder and the bottom of the wall. Right there, X. So, what do you have? What do you want? What do you need? Well, I have 65 and I have, what's this called? What's this one here called? The hypotenuse. We can label that. Hypotenuse. What is the side that you're looking for? Adjacent. This is adjacent to 65. We're going to put adjacent down here. Okay. Now, we have an angle, and we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Which function should we use that will use all three of those things? Class? Cosine, exactly. Cosine. What comes out right after we have the function? We always put the angle. Cosine of 65 is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Cosine of 65 is just a number. You could type it in your calculator. I'm going to do so right now. Cosine of 65, and I'm going to cross multiply with 4.5. I'll get x on this side equals 1.9. I'm going to the nearest tenth. Always look. 1.9, and I'm going, this is a meter. So I'm 1.9 meters. The base of my ladder is 1.9 meters from the wall. Good. Could I determine the height of the wall? Class example number 3 right here. Could I determine the height of the wall? Sure. Give a little picture. I can redraw it. Here's my little house. I know that this is 4.5. I now know that this is 1.9. You actually have two options. You could use Pythagorean theorem to solve it. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. I won't finish, but I'm going to write it down. What are your sides that you know? Well, you know C is 4.5. And you know, I don't care, call it A or B, it doesn't matter. So you can solve that and arrive at your answer. Or you have the option to use the trig ratios. What are you looking for? What do you have? What do you know? What do you want? Okay, we've got 65 right here. What are you looking for? Compared to 65, that is the, here's what I want. That's the opposite. So I don't care now. You can use opposite and hypotenuse. You could use opposite and adjacent. It doesn't matter what you use. I'm going to use opposite and hypotenuse. So I'm going to say not tangent. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So sine of what? What comes after this trig function? The angle. Every time you write down the trig function, you write down the angle. Equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. Once again, sine of 65 is just a number. You can put it over 1 if you want to. And you're going to cross multiply like this and like this. And x is going to equal, I'll type my calculator, sine of 65, get an answer, then times by 4.5. Make sure you watch your brackets. And I get 4.1. You will arrive at the same thing if you use the Pythagorean theorem to do it properly. All right. Press pause if you need to. I'm going to go on. The last thing to do here is only one change, and that's what if we have an extra step where we just can't cross multiply quickly. It's no big deal. You still cross multiply. You just have to divide when you're done. So watch this. If I'm looking for, we're trying to find little a right here. I look at this angle. I say, what do I have? What do I want? What do I need? Well, we've got 64. I need the hypotenuse. I have the adjacent. The trig function that uses the adjacent and the hypotenuse is cosine. So I say cosine of my angle, always following the trig function is the angle, is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Now here, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot just cross multiply and be done. Because if you take a times that, it looks like this, equals 7.9 on one side. So when you cross multiply, be sure that you write your equal sign down and put one on one side and one on the other. So we have to actually divide. We have to divide both sides by cosine of 64 in order to get our A. So we say A equals 7.9 divided by cosine of 64. And when we do that on our calculators, we should arrive at 18 to the nearest tenth. It's going to be 18.0. So one little extra step when you cross multiply there, it's not quite as clean as how we were doing it before. It's just the way it works. So one example to show you how that happens, maybe two. Determine to one decimal place length of the hypotenuse of triangle PQR, in which PQR is 90. Oh, God, draw a picture. All right. PQR is 90. That means this is Q. That's 90 degrees. I don't care where P, Q, and R are. We can put them anywhere we want. Let's go P at the top. P, Q, R like that. Angle P, R, Q. So angle P, R, Q is 28. That's what that goes there. And PQ is 15.6. So we have to draw the picture, we have to label it appropriately. Then it says to determine to one decimal place the length of the hypotenuse. Go find how big the hypotenuse is. Let's call this little letter Q. So, what do you have? What do you want? What do you need? We have this angle here. We have the opposite side, and we need, no, we need the hypotenuse. Right. So the trig function that uses opposite and hypotenuse. What's the trig function? Sine. Sine of what? What goes after the trig function? Sine of always the angle. 28 equals the opposite, which is 15.6, divided by the hypotenuse, which I called Q. You cannot just cross multiply and be done. We have to kind of cross multiply and then divide. So I'm going to put my equal sign down. I'm going to go sine 28 times Q. I'll put it on this side just for fun. And on this side, I have 15.6 times 1. So what I have to do to find Q is divide by sine of 28. Which is 33.2 to one decimal place. 33.2 degrees. Okay, that's how we're doing it. One last thing before I'm done. It says use trig ratios to determine the length of AB and AC in the given triangle. You have to find AB and AC. Let's start with this one. Let's call it, I don't know, let's call it X. AB, what do you have? What do you want? What do you need? I have 71. I want the opposite. I have the adjacent. The trig function uses opposite and adjacent is tangent. After the trig function goes the degree. Every single time. Goes the angles. Tan of 71. Opposite is X. Adjacent is 147. Ooh, this is a good one. This is an easy one to cross multiply and we're done. So I go tan of 71 times that and X times that. Make sure you watch your brackets. I get 426. It says the nearest meter, so I better go 427. Now, I give myself a quick, I'm like, ooh, that seems really big. But I look over at my question, and I see this is 147 meters. So maybe that's accurate. And I check again, and it is. So we're good, 427. Make sure it's a reasonable answer. Now that you know this is 427, you could use trig, but what else could you use? The Pythagorean theorem. So I don't care what you do or what you use, you can find the other. Okay? I'm going to quit now. Good luck with that.